What's up, Weirdos? I'm Chris Weir, and this is the Chris Weir Experience. And today on Chris Weir Answers, I answer the question, how do we start an advertising campaign? Now, that question by itself is pretty involved, and it really depends on so many different elements, so many different types of campaigns. But I don't want to cop out and give you that, oh, well, it just depends type answer. I really want to try to provide some value. So I'm going to give you basically a standard structure that we generally follow when we're setting up a campaign. It's the things that we think most about whenever we're setting up the campaign. Sometimes it goes in this order. Sometimes it may go a little bit out of order. It just really depends. But these are pretty much the primary items that we're thinking about when we're starting in the very initial stages of creating the campaign. So the first conversation that I always have with a client whenever we're coming up with that first or coming up with a new campaign, the first question always starts with budget. And I know that's a little bit annoying to hear, especially for a lot of business owners who are not used to setting a budget for advertising. It's just kind of like, well, how much is it going to cost? And you just kind of have to pay what you have to pay. In digital advertising today, with digital space like it is, it really is more important that you come up with a budget because you can really set that budget. And when you do set that budget, it really determines everything else that we are able to do. If you're working with an ad agency, every single time have a budget. Don't just say, well, just tell me whatever it's going to cost. More times than not, unfortunately, you're going to have, you're going to probably end up paying for that answer, right? So the more that you can sit down and actually hone in, how much can I spend on advertising? Look at how much you spent over the past year and how much you want to grow. So here's the thing, right? If you're wanting to grow and you're wanting to increase business, which would be the reason you would market or advertise, then you can't spend what you spent last year, right? Because what you spent last year created that business. This year, you need more business, you need to spend more money, right? So be smart about setting your budget. Obviously, use your common sense when setting the budget, but come up with that number first, right? So that's the first step. The second step is actually planning the end game, right? So the budget is the start. That's how much money we have to spend. The second step is the measurement, which is going to happen at the end of the campaign as it's running. The reason that I like to define and clearly lay out the landscape of measurement right out of the gate is it really kind of helps dictate where we're going. I always reverse engineer. That's just how my mind works. So I like to know my end game and where I'm supposed to be going. And then I use a compass to get there. I don't use a roadmap because a roadmap's too rigid. And all a roadmap does is tell you a nice paved road to get there. Most of the time, they're not paved roads. They're bumpy and they're hilly and they're all kinds of stuff. So I just want a compass that gets me going in that direction. And if I have to sidestep at any time, I'm able to get right back on path because I have my compass. But regardless, come up with the measurement. First, what are the goals? What are we, aiming for? And then secondly, how are we going to measure the performance to make sure that we're actually reaching those goals? And that's incredibly important because if you're not hitting those goals and you're not reaching what you've set, then what are you doing? You're just wasting your money and you're not getting the full ROI. So if you don't have the measurement piece in place, I would, argue you're probably going to end up blowing money. The next thing that I start looking at are the distribution channels, because once I've determined my budget, I've determined how I'm going to measure the performance, I can then start planning, okay, well then where are these ads, where's this marketing actually going to be distributed? Is it social media? Is it print? Is it TV? Is it radio? Is it outdoor? Whatever it is, right? So determine the distribution channels and all the different variations that come with each, right? So if I'm running let's say I run a print ad, and I want to supplement that with a promotion on social media. Well, the graphic that I use in the magazine would be a completely different size than what I would want to use on Facebook. So now I've got two variations of this one ad. So by laying out all your different mediums, all the different distribution channels that you're going to use, you can then, right after that, start coming up with all the different variations you're going to need of each ad. Do I need video and do I need an audio? Do I need, whatever? So once you determine that, then we actually start getting into the fun stuff. We start determining what the message is. What are you wanting to say to your audience? And start coming up with creative ways to say that. Whether that's humor, whether that is emotion, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You come up with whatever is creative. You come up with a creative way to basically push that message out so that people hear it, and that it's entertaining, right? You want to make sure that you entertain and inform. And then finally, the last thing is you start working on the design of it all. So once the budget's laid out, once the measurement has been defined, the distribution channels and variations are put in place, and the message is determined, you can then turn it over to your creatives, your designers, and allow them to start building the visuals of the ad around all of that stuff you've already determined. And of course, once they get that done and you start distributing it, you're gonna watch it, you're gonna manage the campaign, you're gonna measure it, make sure it matches all that measurement. And the full cycle repeats the next campaign that you run. So those are the basic steps of a campaign and how to get one going. Again, there's so many variations depending on the type of campaign that you're doing, the audience and the geographics, where you're located, the demographics, who you're trying to reach. So there are some variations to that, but generally speaking, if you follow those key kind of milestones within a campaign, within the start of a campaign, you're probably going to be pretty good. I hope it helps. Talk to you soon.